Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Urban Impact Show. I'm your host today, Lyric Sellers, and as some of you may know, in the past couple weeks we've discussed all things Black men, all things Black women, and today we will be discussing all things Black youth. So I have a couple special guests with me today who I'll let introduce themselves.
I'll start. My name is Caleb Nichols. I am 18 years old. I just recently graduated high school this year. And a couple things about myself is I do spoken word poetry. I'm definitely an activist, and I care a lot about the Black youth. So yeah.
I'm Arabia Parkey. I'm 17. I just graduated from Hoover High School. I'm an artist. I am one half of the Amplify XJ Caleb Collective, and I'm a student journalist as well.
I'm Mackie Doctor. I'm 18 and I just graduated from Roosevelt.
Okay, so since this segment is centered around Black youth, I thought I started off with a question that speaks specifically to that. So I'll just throw it out there. What is, a message that you'd like to get across to older generations in the Black community? And with that, what is a message you'd like to get across to fellow Black youth?
Something that I would like to say to the older Black community, I think we've all kind of experienced this as we go through meeting our goals and working towards whatever we have in our heart. Like, we need support from the people around us, the people older than us. I think time and time again we've experienced people who say they might want to help us. They're there for us when we need it, but when we actually need that help, there's not always those people there. So having older people to give us guidance, to give us helping hands, to give us the actual support and mentorship and things like that when we're working towards our goals, I think that's really important for us.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, I'll answer the Black youth question. I really think in this time right now, Black youth is definitely in need of a unity between any matter, whether that may be like within the community or inside your home or just anywhere in life, any aspect. I think we need like an overall community and unity to come together because a lot of the times, as we see through the news or on social media, a lot of things for the Black youth is not very good right now. And we can probably definitely expand upon that later, but definitely like a unity factor. We need to come together in every aspect of life.
Definitely. You have something you want to add?
Yeah, I have something for the Black youth. There is more to life than the streets. You can go to school, get an education, go off to college, get a good job, help your families, instead of being in the streets, getting killed or ending up in prison.
Right. Something I'd also add, kind of relating to what you were saying, but like speaking to, the older generations in the Black community, being able to trust the youth and know that we've been paying attention, we've been growing up in the same environment, and I feel like they have a hesitancy to let go of the youth and let us lead and let us expand upon, our ideas. And it kind of goes on to having that conservative approach. And I think we really have to put out there that you can't always have a conservative approach to a movement towards liberation. And just being willing to put us in those leadership positions, I think a lot of youth are stepping into their gifts and showing that what they're capable of, and we get to see it in the community and we get to support each other. And as far as youth, I would say like to keep showing up for each other, because I know y'all are doing a lot and you work with youth, that if we continue to show up for each other, that we'll be able to keep going and doing things together, and people will continue to have that faith in us. And something else I wanted to ask is like, what do you think it means to be pro-Black? Because I know there's like a lot of controversy when it comes to that and how people exist within their Blackness. Like, what do you think about that?
For me, I would say embracing all things Black, like embracing everything about yourself, embracing our people and standing up for us and creating change in any way that we can. And like you were saying, unifying and uplifting each other and giving each other platforms that we need to succeed, because more often than not, we're not given these platforms in day-to-day life. So creating those platforms for each other, like pretty much what we're doing right now, and is extremely important.
Yeah, I'll definitely add on to that. I agree with everything she said. I definitely think pro-Black means to be for everything Black and to put Black before anything else. So whether that mean like Black economics, the Black lifestyle, anything, always being Black should come before anything. So if you're pro-Black, you have just Black everything, like she was saying. You love your Black features. You marry Black women. You have Black children and things of that nature. So it's just Black everything, 100%.
I definitely agree. I feel like that kind of gets tricky when people talk about that because people don't really like to be disturbed in the way they already exist. And being able to know that there's power in being able to exist differently in your Black identity, but also realizing that we have to continue to put that first, like you said, and prioritize your Blackness in order to have that continuity to our culture, because we've so many times had to redefine who it is we are, what it is that we represent, because it's always been taken away from us or robbed from us, or it's just something that we don't embrace as much.
Right.
Like being unapologetic in every single way, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. You have anything with that? No.
That's it.
All right. Well, I think this would be a good time for you guys to talk about like what it is that you're doing so that people know how they can support you, show it for you.
Appreciate that. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the sneaker drive first and just lead into it. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm gonna say it again. My name is Caleb Nichols.
I'm Arabia Parkey.
I just want to get that out there. So these are names that you guys can definitely remember. And we have an objective together. We came together as a collective. We haven't thought of a name yet, but right now we're going by Amplify XJ Caleb. And basically our goal is to just give back to Black youth and support Black youth in any way that we can. And we feel like as being two young Black members within the community, especially within Des Moines, we feel like it's really important. And that's kind of what the aspect I think that she was saying earlier about the older Black generation need to look at what we're doing and pour it back into us and support us. And so a couple things that we've done so far is first thing that we did to like start this whole movement is we did a sneaker drive. Mackie down there actually helped with it too. It was me, Mackie Arabia, and a couple other young Black men within the Des Moines community, and we all came together and just sought out a goal to give out free shoes, whether it be Jordans, Retros, Vans, Adidas, anything of that nature, just to Black youth specifically. And so we just wanted to make sure we give back shoes free of charge to Black youth, because that's something that we feel like they need. And just that aspect of older, not necessarily older Black men, but older young Black adults, I should say, so like our age group, because me and Mackie are both 18, and so just giving back to the kids that might be in elementary school or early middle school that are young Black men just looking at us so they can see that cycle continue. So hopefully when they get our age, they can do the same thing. And then after our successful sneaker drive, because that went really well, me and Arabia, we decided to come together and do another event that we got coming up, and that's called the Black Art Mecca, and I'll let her explain that.
Yeah, so Saturday, July 31st at Waterworks Park Amphitheater, Caleb and I are hosting the Black Art Mecca from 3 to 9 p.m. And pretty much this event will be all Black artists, vendors, businesses, food trucks, performers, and we're pretty much just showing out for the culture for young Black youth, like we've been saying. We're giving each other platforms to succeed in our artistry in every single way, whether that's performing arts or culinary arts or pretty much anything you can think of. We're giving that platform for people to be able to succeed, because we are not given that platform. We're usually not given this platform in especially the arts industry. You usually see white artists or non-Black artists as the face of the art movement. So we are giving Black youth the chance to be the face of something big in Des Moines.
Yeah, and definitely to piggyback off what she was saying, to definitely attack that narrative, because a lot of you guys know we live in Des Moines, and majority of the demographic, as you guys might know and see every day, is definitely white people. And so we feel that Black people, especially young Black artists, don't have this opportunity. And so one of our biggest goals with every event that we do or anything that we might do for the community is definitely create a culture for Black youth that we don't think is in Des Moines yet. So that's definitely one of our biggest visions, to create that culture.
You have anything?
Yeah. I'm a stylist, designer. I do YouTube. I model. I help out with the community. Just little stuff. I have a school drive coming up on the 6th of August. So yeah. I have a school drive coming up on the 6th of August. So if anyone out there that has anything, donate school supplies, pencils, book bags, notebooks, anything, it would really help out.
Where do we go to do that type of stuff? How do we contact you?
You can DM me on Instagram, Mackie Doctor, my first and last
All right. Something I'd like to uplift is a couple opportunities that we have coming up as well, just so that we know that there's always opportunities out there for our Black youth. As they've explained, as he's explained, like we're constantly trying to do stuff in the community. And something that I know of is that we are actually hosting a retreat that's coming up early August, where we have people who go to different school districts or within DMPS school district who can come in and have workshops and things centered around, self-care, healing, reframing, reimagining their school district, and also allowing youth to come in and develop a case study is what we're referring to it as, but developing an idea of something that they want to change or an issue they want to tackle, and having the support of the people in our community to be there with them through that and make sure that it can happen. Because I know something that we've learned in the past year is just the power of the youth and the power of the people and how they're the ones that come through at the end of the day. So that's a really good opportunity. I think you should look into it, and having kids sign up, youth sign up, and adults that may want to come in and be a part of that, and just knowing that there's always those options out there for them. Something else I want to ask you all is, where is it that you see Black youth are not being catered to enough, or that they're not thriving enough, or something that they may need, whether it be in education or just in our neighborhoods, things like that? Like, where do you see that exists, and what do you think we need to do about it?
I could start. I would definitely say the Black youth is definitely in need of help within the education system. But I want to say even outside of that, I feel like a bigger aspect. Well, I don't want to say bigger because education is very important. Knowledge is power. But like outside of that, I feel like a lot of the role models and figures that young Black males or just young Black women look up to aren't very ideal. And I feel like there's a disconnect between a lot of the older Black generation, especially the Black generation now, because I feel like with how the style and just things are, the culture is for Black youth now is very different from how the culture is for the older Black generation. There's a disconnect. So I feel like there needs to definitely be more people like us in our age group that step up into those leadership positions and have the knowledge and have the power to want to give back. Because I feel like that's an easier connection for younger Black youth, especially in like elementary school, early middle school, like I keep talking about, to look up to us, opposed to having like a older older Black person within their generation and community, and their ideals might clash. I feel like it's easier for us to explain these ideas and get the issues across to the younger Black generation.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll touch on some of the education aspects. Us just graduating from the most diverse school in the state, I think we've seen firsthand how the education system impacts young Black youth, and how we're not given the funding, we're not given as many the opportunities that we need to succeed. The ones who are succeeding are the smarter ones who can conform to the white education standards pretty much. And I think some of the work that Lyric and everybody else has done with removing SROs and stuff like that is definitely a step towards making progress to the education system and making it better for Black youth so that we can succeed, and we don't have to necessarily conform or be walk straight on the line pretty much to not hurt anybody's feelings or do, I don't know how to necessarily explain it, but we don't have to conform as much to the typical standards within education to have to succeed.
Right. And I feel like with what you just said, especially using Lyric as an example, I feel like that's a perfect like real life situation, and just like an actual example of what me and you were just saying about how I feel like it's so much easier for Black youth, especially in our age group, to show that we can actually make that change and do these big, powerful things like how Lyric did and the people that she worked with, how they removed SROs from the schools. And that's just crazy to think about, because Lyric is an upcoming senior, and Black youth that are younger than her can really look up to her and be like, wow, someone that's still in high school made a big change like that within all Des Moines public schools. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I definitely... Oh, an SRO is a student resource officer or school resource officer. So those are the officers that exist in the school system and that are showing up in our schools. And what we did was we got rid of them to break the school to prison pipeline, and we replaced them with restorative justice facilitators. So people that can de-escalate and come in and support our youth and mentor them and make sure that they're actually, getting their problem solved rather than being punished for it. Right. And I think something that I also want to touch on is something that Arabia mentioned, is like feeling you have to conform in the system, but also how equity plays a big role in that. I feel like we throw around those words equity and inclusion all the time, and I say that all the time because you see that in every environment almost, especially with the movements and stuff that are going on. I feel like it's something that's just been slapped on there but really not understanding what that means and how you have to show up for different people in different ways in order for them to thrive and succeed in their environment. And knowing that, what may work for Mackie won't work for me, or same with Arabia and Caleb, but just also focusing on putting youth in the center of those conversations that you're making for them. I think that's something that we've really learned a lot this past year, is like people felt unheard for so long, because they were being like, those decisions were being made for them, but not including them in that process. So what do y'all think about that? Like, how have you guys been able to, insert yourself in the conversation to make sure things are being done for you?
I think I can touch on that. I think though you're younger than me, you have definitely been very inspirational for me, and given us platforms. Like when we had that meeting with our administrators at Hoover, having those conversations and making change within the school, and then then later I wrote articles about that type of things to start making that change within the school and reaching out to people and throughout the district. I think the things that you did helped create more opportunities for other people, and gave people the power that they didn't have before. So I think that was really powerful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything to add?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. You have anything?
I agree with everything I said. There's not really too much to say.
Okay. In what areas do you think that, Blackness needs to be more prevalent? I feel like a lot of times it's kind of, diversity or things like that, but I feel like we still have to center that and have, still have Black only spaces and things like that, which cause a lot of controversy sometimes. But what environments do you think that's more prevalent in, and where do you think we need to see that more?
What environments is it more prevalent in? I can't even think of an example. Sports. Oh yeah, you're right. Sports. That's definitely the one where you probably see the majority of Black students partaking in. But just thinking about where it should be more prevalent, I would definitely say me and Arabia can speak. I don't know if you can too. We can all speak from the standpoint of definitely like attending Central Academy or campus, being downtown, because like we know majority of that demographic is also white students, and us three, because we all went, right? Yeah, us three, we all attended both of those places, Central Campus and Central Academy, and definitely there's not a wide amount or a big enough demographic pool of Black students. And I feel like a lot of the times when we were in classrooms, it would just be like one or two of us maybe within the classroom. So definitely in places like that where it's majority of white students. But I feel like that's majority of the schools in Iowa. Where it's just like where more Black spaces for Black students need to be held. It's probably in majority of all the schools for Iowa.
Every standpoint.
Yeah.
But then I think that's also touching on what we were talking about earlier with the education standpoint.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you see what demographic of students have access to higher education.
For sure.
And who's pretty much being prepared more for the higher level of
Yeah.
college and things like that. Black students aren't given those opportunities unless they're truly like making a huge effort to get those opportunities. We have to work extra hard to get those opportunities, but you see our white peers are able to get into those spaces easily. They don't have to meet all the requirements that we do, because those opportunities are more so just given to them. But yeah, I think definitely education is where we need to be placed first more, especially in our school district.
For sure. And I also want to say I feel like we can all on this panel, we would all agree with this, but for this entire episode of the podcast, I don't want to make the audience, people watching, and just make it seem like that we're constantly comparing what the Black students do, especially to like what our white students do within the schools, because me and Arabia talked about it recently, actually. I feel like, or we both feel like it's more important, especially now in this day and age. I feel like I want to focus more on what I can do to help Black students instead of constantly comparing the struggle that I go through to what a white student has available to them, because I feel like in this point in my life, that's just a waste of energy. I want to see what I can do and just spend 100% of my energy on how I can make the experience better for other Black students and other Black youth. So I also want to put that out there. We don't want to make it seem like we're constantly trying to compare the two, what Black students go through or what white students go through. Because honestly, I don't care anymore in my life about what they go through. I'm just trying to see what we can do, people like us on this panel, what we can do to better the experience for Black students and Black youth, especially within Des Moines. That's definitely more important than continuing that struggle that we've been having for years and years about what white students get, what black students don't get. Like all my focus now, especially, is just on what can I do to help out black students. So there is no comparison. So we're just already on a different level. So
I think it is important to recognize those differences as we have done, but
Yeah.
it's definitely more important to actively strive towards lifting us up as
Yeah,
we've been
bettering,
doing, and
for sure.
as we've been saying. It's not productive to continue to complain and complain and complain about what we don't have.
Right.
So how do we get what we don't have?
right, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like we've had to be in so many spaces where we've had to just explain ourselves to people and hope
Right.
that they care and hope that they do something about it. But at this point, it's like, what can we do? And knowing that we just have the power within our community to do those things, just as long as we keep showing up for each other, I think that's a big part. Just, having that hope that people will give in to what you're doing and actually validate that work
Right.
and actually show up for it so that you can continue to do it. Because I know a lot of times it's just kind of feel like we're throwing ourselves out there in hopes that people show up. I know that was a big thing with the protests that we had too. It was just like hoping people showed up and people cared, because a lot of energy and time was going into that. And something I also want to ask is about the new bill that was passed with not being able to talk about, those divisive concepts such as race or gender and stuff like that in schools. Like, what do y'all think about that?
Didn't that just happen in Texas?
It's
Or
happened here too.
oh, it happened here too?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I didn't know that.
I don't know. Pretty much, I know that we're going to be censored in like all types of spaces, and it's not surprising that we're being censored within school and within what we're learning. I think the importance there is finding ways to learn outside of school and finding opportunities to get the knowledge that we need, because I mean we haven't been provided with education about black anything pretty much, except for Black History Month and learning about MLK and those types of people.
Right.
So having programs or things like that that'll help teach the youth and teach us what we need to learn and what we're not getting in school. I think that would be important and good to have for the community.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I think something that's kind of like disheartening is the fact that this is the year that we were having those classes come up, and that we were having Black history and African American studies and intersectional feminism, like classes that most people weren't even thinking about.
Right.
But just having that happen, and then it constantly feeling like, you go 2 steps forward, you push 10 steps back.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's kind of, contradicting to the statements that we're putting out here and saying that we're working towards equity and justice and things like that. But it just goes to show how performative that stuff is.
Definitely.
But it kind of just, is demotivating sometimes when you see how much work you do and how much attention you're trying to get. But that kind of stuff happens. And I definitely think that with Iowa, we got to see like how the people were the ones that made those changes, and the people were the ones that were in the streets protesting, things like that. But it was never our legislation. And I think that like goes back to that, the idea of having those suggestions of victory and people trying to win us over in that way, but not actually giving us economic justice and
Right.
things like that. So, is there any other topics that you guys like want to talk about that, I want to make sure that this is a space where you guys get to talk about things that may be on your mind or things that you guys want to share. It's open space. I just want to make sure I have that opportunity.
No, good looks. No, I'm liking where the conversation going. I don't got nothing on my mind right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, something else that I'd like to talk about is like just media and the way that people are portrayed in that. I think a lot of things that I've been talking about recently was just like Black pain and Black stuff in the media. Like, how do you think that we should be portraying those stories? Because I think it's kind of a weird balance between having those conversations and teaching about the oppression and the lack of justice and things, but also to the point where we're not really talking about Black people in a humane way.
Right.
We're not talking about, how we live lives, and we interact with each other in normal ways too, but just always talking about the downfalls and the oppressive sides of things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like we're not celebrating our victories in the media.
Right.
We're only seeing like our struggles and the things that like those type of things that we go through. We're not giving kids some people to look up to besides athletes or actors and things like that. Like we're I don't know.
Now we all know it. We all know on this panel it's designed to be like that in the first place. Though
Right.
it's definitely targeted and gears towards showing black pain and black trauma throughout all types of media, and definitely having specific black entertainers and athletes be the ones that we look up to. But definitely to piggyback off Lyric and Arabia, there needs to. Dang, see that's crazy that they really did that. Wait, Lyric, explain that thing to me.
The new bill.
Yeah, because I don't even like. I could get what you were saying, but like,
Yeah.
what clearly like what did they do?
Yeah, so it was House File 802, so it banned the talking of anything divisive. So we can't talk about race or systematic racism, things like that, gender inequality.
What?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It's now illegal to do that. So.
What?
But how do they actually censor that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
how would they even stop that?
Like,
Well-
is it just like the curriculum or like?
Yeah, I think it has to do with mostly the curriculum, and that's kind of what I was talking about with the new classes and stuff that we have, the curriculum building. Like I was there for that too, and how
Right.
we were really trying to be intentional about having those stories told and people liberated in it. And I feel like they're trying to avoid it so that we don't seem like a state that's already not thriving and doing well in that realm, but just not wanting to bring attention to anything, especially when we get to learning about our own history and learning stuff on our own. I think that's when people start to get intimidated and avoid those type of things.
Right.
But now they're doing it through law. So that's what I was trying to kind of get at, is like people not really being aware of those kind of things going
Right.
on around us. And I think that's like one of the big things that we try to touch on with the protests, is like making it intentional that we are paying attention, but also to those who weren't, bringing that to light and making sure that youth are engaged in their education, because that's a lot of times where they get you, is like when you don't go through those levels of education to college, or
Right.
education to whatever that may lead to, that kind of like there's so many stigmas around that, where it kind of just is like a stopping point for a lot of people. But just knowing that when you get involved in that kind of stuff, that you can be a part of that. But now we have to stop for a break, so we'll come back and continue the conversation. Make sure you stay tuned in and drop any questions or anything that you may want us to talk about in the comments.
Hello and welcome back to the Urban Impact Show. I am Dewana Bradley, and no, I'm not going to be taking over the rest of the show. We are taking a short break from all things Black youth. They have been doing an amazing job, and we're going to take a short break right now to talk to Madison, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the One Economy Financial Development Corp.
Yes, hello. My name is Madison Sconyers. I once upon a time was a youth in Des Moines, so it's really great to see that the youth in Des Moines are still very active. Like Dwana said, I am a part of One Economy Financial Development Corp. It actually was started within the Directors Council, but our mission is to create a pathway for financial stability and wealth among low to moderate income individuals and small businesses, with an emphasis on the Black community in Central Iowa through loans and supporting services. So we actually work with other organizations like the Evelyn K. Davis Center, the Financial Empowerment Center, the Directors Council, Iowa Community Capital, and the Iowa Foundation for Microenterprises and Community Vitality.
Great. So are there any classes that you have for individuals, or how can they learn more information if they want to be a part of the great work that One Economy is doing?
Yes, well, you can always visit us at our website. So that is www.oefdc.org. So again, that's www.oefdc.org. And you will actually see we have a product that's out right now. It is a small dollar short-term loan called the Financial Revival Loan. So it's a $525 loan. We get you set up with a financial advisor who talks about your own personal financial situation and what kind of progresses that you want to make with that. And also work with Des Moines Metro Credit Union to set up a savings account. The only caveat with this loan is that it is a payroll deduction loan, meaning your employer has to be willing to set that up for you in HR. But it's very easy to get that or maintain that. It is targeted towards Des Moines residents that are of African diaspora. So if you fit into that category, we want to give it to you.
All right. So you have heard Madison talk to us. One Economy Financial Development Corp can be able to help you get your finances in order. And I think that's something we all can use a little bit of assistance with. So we are going to thank Madison for being with us and sharing with us. Could you give them that website one more time?
Yes, www.oefdc.org, or you can work with our partners at the Financial Empowerment Center, and that is empowermoney.org. So a lot of our services go through them. So you can work with us directly or go to them directly as well.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Madison, for being with us. We're going to take a short break and we will have our youth back to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Now we're kind of going to get into more of a broader national level of talking. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how we felt the older generations dealt with the whole George Floyd incident, and even across the globe. Like, how do you guys feel about how that was taken care of, or how adults dealt with that versus how youth would have dealt with that?
All right, so boom. I feel like they've been dealing with this type of stuff for like a long time, feel me? But it's been the same thing. Nothing has changed, you know? So I feel like as the youth, we could come up with a different way to come at this and see how it affects it instead of doing the same stuff they've been doing since way back then.
Yeah, we gonna cut right to the chase and just be on it. Like, I definitely feel like what the older generation does and how they acted and their reaction to the George Floyd incident and the traumatic event that happened. I definitely feel like protesting within itself is just a very ineffective tactic, and I think that we can see that throughout history through many protests that have been done, especially for Black people in the Black community. I don't think that we've seen any clear results. I'm gonna just say that for right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think protesting has been like peaceful protesting. It can be beautiful, but it's not always the best way to create liberation. And it kind of depends on what you personally view as Black liberation.
Sure.
Some people view that as through legislation. Other people view that as uplifting each other because of us, like us uplifting each other, us creating spaces for ourselves
Right.
within our own communities and not having to rely on other people to create those spaces for us. And so I think peaceful protesting isn't always the way to go about that. And
sure.
I've had conversations about this with like older people, like my parents or other family members and things like that. And there's definitely differing viewpoints. And I think peaceful protesting is the way that people the first thing that people resort to. And I think the pushback with like the riots and things like that was the sloppiness of that and the lack of direction, the lack of organization, because things like that, if it is done in the right way, I mean, it might be able to create something. Like if you have an actual direction to go with that, something can be created, whether that's I don't know how to explain that. It's not like I'm not condoning violence necessarily, but protecting our communities and creating change in ways that aren't necessarily the norm, pretty much.
Yeah, for me, I think protesting and the way that younger people went about that, I think that kind of brought people together more than it did law changing and things like that. I definitely see where that was really prevalent and where people came together and how we saw a shift in the culture in our communities and our neighborhoods, and people that showed out in mass crowds and showing up for one another. And I think that the only thing that comes with that is knowing that you should expect more, and you should expect more to come with that, and it not just being out of the energy and the depriving and the extraction of Black people, but at the hands of the people that are making the laws. And I think that's kind of where that protesting comes in, is that as that pressure.
Right.
And in what ways can we really apply more pressure? I know people go the route of wanting to be in legislation and wanting to infiltrate those systems, which is a process. So I think we have to also think about how youth now are creating these programs and stuff for youth and catering to that. But I think to just address like the way that I seen it from my perspective as older generations handling it, I think it's always been this idea of compromising or thinking about how we can work with other people to get our liberation, but that's not really how it works. So I just see a lot of instances where people are settling, and I think that that's where people get really tired. And I know for me, that's something I've had to learn too, is that it's not an issue of us compromising or us thinking about how we can get along better, but like how we get what it is that we deserve and that we've been working for. But I think also it's just coming together within our own community before we can expect other people of other communities to show up for us. And we see a lot of disconnect within the Black community. And that's something we were kind of touching on, is like, even people not wanting to be addressed as African American or Black or just African. And I think we see all that disconnect within our own community, and we're having these problems still. And people are kind of just looking at us laughing, like, you guys can't even figure it out within yourselves. So, you know, like, what do you think about how you identify yourself and how, you know, intersectionality plays a part in that, all that kind of stuff? But like, I'll just ask, like, do you guys prefer to be called Black or African American? Because that's something that I have gotten conversations with a lot, and something I'm just curious to hear from all of you.
I would prefer to be called Black instead of African American, because I come from Africa, so I have no American in me, and to be called African American wouldn't really fit me.
Would you prefer just African or just Black still?
Both, it really doesn't matter.
Okay. What about you?
Personally, I think I prefer Black because African American feels like I'm tying myself to a place that has never loved people who look like me and has continuously disrespected people who look like me. So claiming that I am African American is giving my power to pretty much to America, and I don't think America is worthy of that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm somewhere on the outside because I don't know. I would definitely probably go with Black, leaning towards categorize myself as Black opposed to African American. But I don't know, because with a lot of the knowledge and reading that I've been doing, the word Black has like a lot of different roots and stuff. And just a couple of the people that I get my knowledge from or read their books about, there's a lot of history behind that word and just African American. And I don't know, because it's crazy, because definitely I feel like whether you want to call us Black or African American, I feel like our people in general have like the most clouded history, because some people believe that we're from Africa. Some people believe that we were the first ones here. What's that called? What do they call that?
Indigenous.
Yeah, like the indigenous people on this land of America. And there's just like a bunch of different knowledge. And so until I feel like, until I can find the one which I think is like the clear cut and I feel like I connect with the most, I'm on the outside. So you can refer to me as Black or African American, but I still got to figure that out for myself first. So definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on that question because I know there's such a disconnect between, you know, Black or African American or African people.
Right.
Because just from learning myself, it's like people, when they were coming from Africa, not as slaves, like they were fed these narratives about the people that were already here. And I feel like these terms are kind of, you know, like fighting about what term we use, what we acknowledge ourselves as or other people. It still goes back to that disconnect within each other. Like why do we fight so hard to separate ourselves, but also just knowing that we need that history, that cultural significance to those types of things and those types of conversations, but also just, as I was saying before, like acknowledging that intersectionality. So you know, like what parts of your identity do you think are most prevalent, and like where do you think that intersectionality plays a role in that?
I would say, I mean, obviously I'm Black first and foremost, and that takes place in pretty much everything that I do. Within my art, I'm centering Black people, I'm centering the Black experience, I'm centering Black stories. Through journalism, I'm writing about Black businesses and same thing, Black experiences and all of that. And I think that Blackness takes place in every single aspect of your life. You can be Black and everything else. You can be Black and an artist, but you are Black first and
Black.
foremost. And that's
Right.
how you are perceived pretty much, and that's how you experience life as a Black person.
Right. For sure. I second everything that Ruby just said. That's exactly how I feel too.
You have anything to add? I would just say, like, I feel like it's really important that we acknowledge that intersectionality and how you know, our experiences differ from, you know, whether it be having a LGBTQ identity or being a Black woman versus a Black man. I think that's kind of where there's controversy within our community, is that even to our own community, we're not catering to that equity, and that where that plays a role in the liberation of these people within this community. And I think just really acknowledging that, and even in like spaces that we talk about, like education, things like that, how people kind of look over that that aspect of things when making decisions and stuff like that for our people, but also still acknowledging how we have that disconnect within each other and not really opening and having those conversations. So, I mean, I think that it's really just important to refocus on how this is dedicated to Black youth.
Right.
So, what is it about older generations do you think that we have that disconnect, and why do you think that exists, and why is it that you think that there's so much controversy between how older generations do things versus how we've gone about things?
I definitely think the social media aspect plays a big role into the disconnect between the older Black generation and the younger Black generation. I feel like now a lot of the older Black generation may perceive or look at what we do with our protests or forms of activism as definitely as a performative thing. And I also feel like that is true to the case with a lot of people that do the protests and activism nowadays, especially within our age group, because when we were touching on it earlier about the protests and everything, when the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening, what was that? That was last year. Yeah, last year and stuff. We can all attest to this, but we saw people that would like post for a day or put the BLM in their bio
With the
for a
black
couple.
squares.
Yeah, the black squares didn't do anything, but just very performative stuff. Because I feel like within our generation, especially with technology, we have like a big idea of I need to do what everybody else is doing to fit in, to make it seem like I'm doing the right thing and stuff like that. But I definitely feel like one of the biggest disconnects that separates us between the older Black generation and the younger Black generation is definitely the social media aspect, because I feel like a lot of the Black generation, they'll be like, oh, I was out there, I was doing all this, we were protesting, stuff like that. Like we were really out there. You know how they be. They be like they walked 5,000 miles to school in the snow and nothing, so we know how they be. They didn't, but that's what they tell us though. It was just so much different, but I guess.
I think part of it too is the need for, or the yearning pretty much for people our age to break out of cycles that older generations have created. And obviously
sure.
that's going to get backlash from older generations because that's what they're used to. Change is hard for everybody. It's hard for us to find ways to create change. It's hard for us to break out of the cycles that our parents or our grandparents have inflicted onto us.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that's a lot of it as well.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about breaking those cycles and stuff, it also ties into that generational trauma aspect of things.
Right.
I feel like we carry a lot of weight that our parents or grandparents and stuff do, but also having still those disconnects where people don't understand how that exists in our self and our identity, and how also we're learning so many different things as we go along that people just kind of have that that protective outlook on things. And I feel like just like even within my own family, I know that when the protests and stuff first started happening, like my father was like, you cannot be out there, you do not do that, or
Right.
He was just worried about something that may happen to me. But at the same time, I always felt like I wasn't contributing, or I wasn't doing my part, because I saw so many leaders before me that were sacrificing themselves or doing things like that. And I feel like that kind of plays a role too in how we've seen people before us do those things and talk about those things, but then there's so much controversy when it comes to us wanting to partake in that type of stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, where do you think that the change really happens? Like, where do you think that you've seen the most change happen and the most results come out of, whether it be organizing or putting things together, programs, things like that? Where do you think that is more prevalent?
Personally, I think change happens in many ways, and I think the most important way, personally, is unity. So whether that's unity through creating events, whether that's coming together to remove school resource officers, or and pretty much all of us coming together and sharing ideas and pouring our energy together to create something larger than us. I think that's pretty much the way that change happens the most. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one specific way, but when it comes out of unity and comes out of love and comes out of our collective effort, that's where change comes the most.
Sure.
What about you?
I agree with what Ray said. Unity is a big thing, because when we're all united, for me, it's hard to break us apart.
Stronger together, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, I got a question for y'all. Like, what do y'all think? Like, so if unity is the first thing that is like, we think in like the multitude of ways change can happen. If we think unity would be like the first step, what do you guys think would be second? You think it would be economical or like educational?
I think both. Maybe education, because you got to be educated on how to economics work and how to create generational wealth and things like that. So education, I think, would be second.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely, because I feel like a lot of people kind of, underestimate the power of education, and just not really realizing that we're constantly learning all the time and that we're constantly applying that knowledge. But I think because of what we see, systemically, is like, I kind of feel like our youth sometimes don't feed into it as much,
Right.
Especially because they're not seeing enough of themselves reflected in that. So I would definitely say education would come next, only because, like Arabia said, you'd have to, be aware of that. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say education, because
You're good.
Good.
You're good, yeah.
I definitely think, yeah, I heard what you guys were saying about the education, but I think if we're gonna say unity is the first thing, and then figuring out what's next for the second, whether that be economic or education, I feel like they go hand in hand with each other. So like you said at first, Arabia, I feel like they might be tied because in the sense of like education, especially like education within the Black community, especially in like those low poverty areas. So whether we might be talking about like hoods in Chicago or hoods in the South, I definitely feel like the reason that the education is lacking is because of the low economical funds and like stuff that they put inside of the school. So I definitely feel like they're on that same level and they balance each other out, because without the money you can't have the education, and without the education you can't have the money. So they definitely go hand in hand with each other. But that black dollar is important though. That's probably, I feel like one of the ways, I feel like personally the way to create the biggest change for the Black community is definitely Black Economics 101. So yeah, teaching that.
I definitely agree. I think also with that is just realizing that, I would just end like realizing that, we have the power to, feed into that and also create these things that we're doing now to make our youth more aware of that, and also allowing our adults to, feed in and support that kind of stuff.
Right.
Unfortunately, we can't go on much longer, so we'll just end with any final thoughts that you may have and then wrap up.
Final thoughts. This whole panel right here is very great young Black leaders, and I definitely feel like you guys need to be on the lookout for what we're doing. And I feel like what we're doing right now is going to be the things that break that generational trauma and those generational curses. And I feel like us starting as young as we are is only going to attest to how great that we can become in the future. So we got a lot of time to learn and grow and stuff. So this is just the beginning of what all of us are doing to help the Black community out. So be on the lookout for sure.
Yeah. I'm very proud of all of us. I know we've all created change and are in our own ways pretty much, and we definitely need more opportunities like this to continue to use our voices and to continue creating the change in different ways than the norm.
For sure.
And also, before I pass it to Lyric and Mackie, I just want to say again, make sure y'all come to the Black Art Mecca on July 31st at the Waterworks Park Amphitheater from 3 to 9 p.m.
Any last thoughts?
Shout out to the Urban Impact Show for having us today.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you to everyone for tuning in. Be sure to drop any more topics or anything that you would like to be talked on this show, and continue to tune in. Thank you for showing up. Bye.